A major storm is underway in the eastern U.S., up and down the East Coast. It's been a really crazy day weather-wise, especially in the south and southeast, where we've had a lot of severe weather and a lot of damage. Now we're seeing winds gusting up to 50 miles an hour, moving their way up the coast, and they're going to get stronger than that as we head through the rest of this evening and into tonight. And we get to go through it all over again Friday night into Saturday because there's another major storm. It's twin right behind this one. So we will talk about both of them and maybe do a little long range tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the descriptor to this podcast. And if you do make a purchase there of this or anything else, use the coupon code I want a weather station, because if you do, you will get.
You'll get 10% off, and that's pretty darn good these days.
Yes. Bad day here, Joe. 4 inches of rain, and a lot of the local rivers were all up to their banks or over their banks. I went down to the dog park, and the river was just under the base of the bridge. Just right at the point that the rain had stopped, so it probably was going to rise some more because the water comes down the mountain. But
now, do you have a rain jacket for JJ?
No.
You don't have a rain jacket?
No.
Our dog, Sweeney, Renata got a raincoat for him. And every time, he's very anxious. You say, Sweeney, you want to go out? And he gets all the tail wags and he wants to go outside. But he knows now that when Renata says, you want to go out, he kind of like, I don't, because he hates that rain jacket. And then we have to fight him to put the rain jacket on.
No, JJ,
and we put the little hood over his head. So
JJ doesn't like to go in water, but rain doesn't bother him. So he's got so much fur. It gives him a quick shampoo when he gets out there in the rain.
And he likes to prance. My dog also likes to prance. We had almost 6 inches of snow over Sunday, and there was still a goodly amount of it yesterday and even this morning. And he loves to jump into the snow and prance around in the snow. Even though my daughter shoveled out a large area on the front lawn so he could see grass and maybe do his thing there, he'll just go out there and jump in the snow. So
good. All right, Bogey's Bees starts the night off by banging the tip jar. Thank you, Bogey's Bees. 2.68 inches of rain so far in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and still coming down. Well, a lot of places down here here in North Georgia got 4 or 5 inches plus. There's a ton of flash flood warnings that are up in western North Carolina. We're going to take a look at that. We're doing Rayo radars tonight.
Yep.
And before we do that, let me just do two things. One is welcome to everybody tonight on the chat board. Welcome to those of you who are new to the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Maybe you're lurking in the background or you want to join in the conversation. By all means, please do. Hit the like button if you like the show, because we like to get at least over 100 likes, and sometimes we can get over 200 likes, and every once in a while over 300, so it makes us happy. So if you like the show, hit the like button, and make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, because Joe and I are on here Sunday through Thursdays at 7:35 p.m., usually off Fridays and Saturdays, but last week we were on Friday and Saturday because of the snow system. In the Northeast, and we will be on Friday night during the start of what's going to be the next major storm. And so mark it down. We'll be here on Friday night on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. But I just want to bring up, before you go to the radar, I just want to bring up the satellite loop, because this thing is monstrous. I mean, in terms of its coverage and size and the extent of the circulation. It's just huge. It goes all the way back to Minnesota. Pushes all the way back to Minnesota, down in through the middle Mississippi Valley. And if you notice the clouds that are across Alabama and Tennessee, that's headed for me as my temperatures drop. and it should be snowing here by about 10 o'clock or so. I plan to stay awake for this particular event. Meanwhile, look at how impressive. Look at this. I'm just really blown away by this. It's so impressive from southeastern Canada, and the cloud line goes all the way down into the Northwest Caribbean, Joe. I mean, this is just a real powerhouse system, and so well advertised by models. I mean, this was a this was pretty much a home run for them for over the last week. Just been targeting this area, and it hasn't really varied very much. Um, very good work. Helps our job here forecasting this stuff to be a little bit easier when we can rely on the models to be reasonably close to reality.
I agree with you 100%. This thing has been advertised for the better part of the past week. We knew it was coming. We knew that even though a lot of focus was being put on the potential winter storm, I say potential because folks in New York expected to see some snow, and they got maybe 5 seconds worth of it before it changed over to rain. But other places like up here, for example, got snow, and to the north of me, over a foot of snow. And that's the problem with this storm tonight, because places that have had a lot of snow are now seeing it rapidly melt away under all of the rain that's falling, and then that is only aggravating the flooding concerns that are on deck for overnight tonight and into the early part of tomorrow. But yes, even though a lot of people were focused initially on the Saturday-Sunday system, that's history now. And even way back to a week ago, we saw this one coming. It's here now. And even after this one is gone, guess what? We've got another one close behind for Friday night into early Saturday, which is why we're going to be working probably on Friday night too.
That's right. Okay, it's time for Rayo's radars. We got a lot to go through. While you're doing the radar, I'm gonna just maybe jump in uh, every so often just to uh, bring up any kind of highlighted things that are going on, be it wind gusts or flash flooding or severe thunderstorms or that kind of thing. So Johnny Quest, thank you for hitting the tip jar. Uh, he says, Joe, I also got about 4 inches, and he's up at about 3,500 feet, and more coming. Flood warnings up all over the place. Oh yeah. In fact, Joe, just 1 second. Let me just show this really fast. Actually, you're in black right now, so I better show something really fast. Take a look here on the radar across North Carolina. I mean, just about every county in western North and central North Carolina and into South Central Virginia, all under flash flood warnings. I mean, there must be about 18 of these counties here, 18 of these boxes. So they may actually cover multiple counties. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, now it's just 7. There are 7 severe thunderstorm warnings in a line. We also have tornado watches in Florida. We've got 3 of the 2 severe thunderstorm warnings there. So very, very busy with respect to what's happening here. Now let's see if we can get back Mr. Rayo on the screen. Yep, there you go. You're up. So it's time for Rayo's radars.
Okay, and we're going to start off with right here in New York, the Upton radar, showing you what has been happening over the last 3 hours. And you can see quite dramatically over northern sections of New Jersey in the final few frames of the loop how it's lighting up with a yellowish coloration. That is indicating at least moderate to possibly moderate to heavy rain. And all of that moving on a southwest to northeast trajectory. Here's where I am, Joe. You can see where the cursor is, just to the south and west of Newburgh, New York, SWF. So far, just before I came down here, we had about 0.8 of an inch of rain. It had started raining here about 12:30 this afternoon. So in the last 7 hours, we put down about 0.8 of an inch. Guess what? With all of this that's now blowing up over northern New Jersey and heading straight in my direction, it would not be at all surprising if we'll maybe double that amount in the next 2 or 3 hours, because this is, again, heavy rain, moderate to heavy rain that's heading northward. And those of you who are in northern New Jersey, you know what I'm talking about. that's pretty much the story for you, down to about Staten Island. So other parts of New York City, such as Manhattan and Queens and Brooklyn and especially the Bronx, who haven't seen that much yet, well, you're going to see it soon because, again, this area here in Jersey is working its way in your direction. Across Long Island, not all that much to talk about. Generally light rain. What Long Island is really gearing up for, maybe not so much in terms of flooding from rain, but flooding from onshore winds. So we said this is really more of a sou'easter, if you will, strong, increasing southeasterly winds, which later tonight are likely to go upwards to 50 miles an hour or more and pushing all of that water along the South Shore, leading to coastal flooding. And that is going to be the story tonight, coastal flooding along the Long Island South Shore areas, and also to a somewhat lesser degree, but still in the cards for the Sound Shore of Westchester and also for southern sections of Connecticut as well. So now that was the New York radar. Let's go a little bit further to the south and west, down to, well, let's go to Philadelphia.
All right, while you're setting
Wrightstown, New Jersey.
while you're setting this up, just give me 1 second here. So, LaGuardia, two things are going on. One is the temperatures are rising, and they've risen into the 50s around the New York City area and surrounding areas. Just looking at some of the observations, LaGuardia is gusting southeast at 30, gusting to 39. Queens College is southeast at 20, gusting to 35. Newark is southeast at 26, gusting to 44. And I just want to see Kennedy Airport. Where are you, Kennedy? There you go. It's 26 gusting to 35. In New Jersey, we have Atlantic City is 23 gusting to 37. Trenton, that's inland. Trenton is got heavy rain southeast at 30, gusting to 47. Millville
Wow.
south 21, gusting to 44. 44, as I said, also at Newark. On Long Island right now, we're seeing gusts into the 30s. Farmingdale is gusting to 35, and MacArthur Airport is at gusting to 39. Everybody else is mostly gusting in the upper 20s and lower 30s. I'm sure the winds are higher right along the immediate coast. Philadelphia's 29, gusting to 35. Scranton, Pennsylvania, 23, gusting to 53. I mean, that's
Scranton, Pennsylvania, folks.
yes, that's the
It's
inland.
not a coastal city.
No, the inland areas are responding to everything that's going on in the atmosphere here, and they're the wind is really blowing there.
We already hit over 100, Joe. We got like 124 already.
Okay, go ahead and do Fort Dix, and I'm going to just check some other observations in the meantime.
All right. Well, for Philly and Wrightstown, New Jersey radar, you could see that area I just mentioned a few moments ago blowing up over northern New Jersey and heading into the lower Hudson Valley very soon. That's the area that, by the way, came on through places like Trenton, New Jersey, with the 45 mile per hour plus wind gusts. So this is lifting, again, southwest to northeast. Now, notice, if you will, that we don't have one gigantic blob of heavy, moderate or heavy rain. We have, actually, it looks like it's coming in waves. So consider this over northern New Jersey, one of the waves moving through. And then we have another area, which is consolidating down over south central New Jersey. That probably affecting the Philadelphia area right now. And that area, too, moving from southwest to northeast. Now, let's go further south and west. Let's go down to, well, let's say Washington, Baltimore, and you can see that they have another wave or round of heavy rain that's moving up through northern Virginia and now heading into central and east central Maryland. And that will be, I guess you could call that wave number 3. We have the first wave again over northern Jersey, a second wave over south central New Jersey, and this is going to be the third wave coming in from northern Virginia and eastern sections of Maryland. And notice, if you will, also, Joe, embedded in this area of yellow, there's a narrow strip of red. That could very well be thunder. That could very well be convective activity that is occurring. And as you pointed out, especially across North Carolina and possibly stretching up now into northern and eastern Virginia, there could be some heavy thunderstorm activity taking place. And it would not be at all surprising. We talked about this last night, Joe, about questioning. Well, we don't question them. We kind of try to anticipate what the folks over at SPC are going to do. Last night, SPC did not have our area, the tri-state New York area, in general thunderstorms. And we were talking about the fact that, hey, with enough lift, enough vertical motion, enough atmospheric energy or omega, that really they should have at least put us in the general area for that. Well, guess what? Maybe they were watching us because today,
Well, clearly, clearly they were.
SPC did put us in general activity, general thunderstorm activity. And I'll tell you what, I put this on Facebook, my Facebook page. I'm banking on the worst part of this in terms of rain and wind to come locally between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. And I said that during that 3-hour time frame, don't be surprised if you see flashes of lightning or maybe even hear some rumbles of thunder, because that'll probably be the peak of the storm. That will probably be when we could, even up here, see some convection embedded in and getting some of that type of activity. But that's, right now, this is Washington, D.C., Sterling, Virginia area.
Well,
let's head
to Salisbury. Salisbury is gusting to 53, Cambridge 49, Wallops Island 51, Ocean City 44, Patuxent 54, Stevensville at 50, gusting to 52. I'm just checking a few other places. At Wilmington, Delaware has been gusting to over 50 miles an hour for about 4 hours now. It's like now they're southeast at 40, gusting to 53. And also, yeah, I mentioned Scranton earlier. I'm just wanting to see if there's any other. Now, I'm looking at some of these obs in Pennsylvania. From Philadelphia west, they're all gusting to like 30 to 40 miles an hour in there. It's just, well, I mean, we knew that there was going to be even stronger winds inland, but I guess seeing it now, it's just sort of impressing me that it's actually happening. But and we're still not in the peak time yet. I mean, we're still,
right.
it's coming up on we're just at 7:51 p.m. Eastern time. So, like you said in terms of the time frame, we're just getting into the very beginning of this.
Yeah, so the 6 hours from 7 o'clock to 1 a.m. is going to be when it's going to be at its worst for most areas. But if you want to zero in, at least for the New York metro area, as to when it's going to be the absolute worst, it probably will be in that 3-hour time frame from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. This is the Dover radar, and you can see that it is chock filled with yellowish colors, indicating that moderate to heavy, and just came across the Space Coast, Cape Canaveral. So you could see that is an area that is certainly ripe for possible strong thunderstorms and maybe even a little bit of tornadic activity as well. Let's go to the Carolinas. Let's go to Columbia, South Carolina. And you can see, there you go. There's that same scraggly, narrow area of convection that is rapidly working its way off the coast. We start the radar loop 3 hours ago over the back edge was over Columbia, but on the final few frames of the loop, the last little bit of precipitation is working its way now off of the South Carolina coastline. We'll go a little bit further north to, let's go to Raleigh, North Carolina. And again, you could see these bands, these areas of strong thunderstorms. Now you know why there's so many watches and warnings that have been put up in this particular region, because this is a very, very active area. And again, notice also, and I mentioned this yesterday, the very rapid forward movement that is loaning itself to making those strong southeasterly or southerly winds very potent, very strong. Whenever you've got a very rapid movement and you've got this push, the gradient gets tight and you get those strong winds. And that combined again with all of this moisture causing all kinds of problems tonight across Virginia, down to the Carolinas, all the way down to the Florida Peninsula.
All right, I'm going to do the snow. Shall I?
No, surely. Surely. Go ahead.
Okay. Why don't I do the snow? All right. At the moment, where you see the hook, of course. The these storms love to have little what we always refer to as comma heads. When you get under the comma head, you get clobbered. Um, there are bands of some moderate snow in the darker greens in and around Chicago and on up to Milwaukee, but there are some gaps in here where the snow lightens up, and oftentimes that happens when you have intense storms. You do wind up seeing on the northwest side, you do wind up seeing banding where you get these bands of heavy snow, and then there's an area in between, and then you got another band of heavy snow. It looks like there's a band of heavy snow up in the Green Bay area. Then there's a little gap. Then you got another band over Milwaukee. Then a little gap, and then another area around Chicago. I learned how about that in a big way being on Long Island because when we had a number of the major storms in the 2000s and the 2010s, a lot of those storms you wound up seeing a lot of banding, and for some reason they always seemed to set up right over where I lived in central Long Island. So I would wind up with 6 to 10 inches more in storms that I got more than 20 inches. You drive a handful of miles in either direction, and maybe they had about 12 or 15, and then you drive to where I was in the band, which ran from about Port Jefferson to Center Reach and then down um, to the South Shore near Patchogue, and maybe about 5 miles either side of that would get absolutely hammered, and then we'd get 21, 22, 23 inches, and so on. So this certainly has that sort of signature. As we go further south, I'm interested in this area that's moving. This is, you're really struggling here to try to get something, but just this area that's now moving across central Tennessee and clipping northeast Alabama, Jess Harden, is going to be getting to me, and it's actually a little bit of precipitation developing to my east northeast. This is forecast to pass very close to me, probably starting at around 10 o'clock and lasting till around 3 a.m. So the actual local offices here are calling for a coating to an inch, particularly in elevations above 1,500 feet. So that's good. I'll be able to see something. The You can see all the severe thunderstorm warnings up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There are, 12 of them ongoing. The flash flood warnings have sort of diminished a little bit in western North Carolina now that the rain has pulled away. And then up in New England, we should point out that there's snow on the northern fringe of this, up in northern New Hampshire, northeastern Vermont, and then continuing on up into this is all going to be moving up into Maine. And there's a pretty good shot that you're probably going to wind up with 4 to 6 inches up here before it's all said and done, maybe a little bit more than that. I don't know if I should throw out a number because I haven't really looked that closely from the standpoint of the snow angle. Meanwhile, out in the west, here we have precipitation that is coming in, and just near Salt Lake City, Joe, they've got two snow squall warnings up in those
Wow.
purple boxes. Those are snow squall warnings as that area moves southeast, and that's the energy that is coming in now with the next major storm, and it's going to be a major storm. It's going to be every bit as strong as this one, and that's going to come Friday night and Saturday. Impacts might be a little different in terms of locations, especially when it comes to snow. We'll get to that in short order. WPC has a moderate risk of flash flooding tonight, obviously, from northeastern Maryland, much of eastern Pennsylvania, the northern half of New Jersey. It just kind of touches New York City, the Hudson Valley, up to the Catskills, and then across into Connecticut, Rhode Island, and southernmost Massachusetts. The slight risk. Moderate risk is a 40 to 70% chance of flash flooding. Slight is 10 to 15 to 40, and that the slight risk yellow goes all the way up into southern New Hampshire and a very tiny portion there of southern Maine, and then back across to south central New York, and then down through central PA and continuing southward into eastern Virginia and northeastern North Carolina. So there's that. SPC. Where are you, SPC? Where? Here we go. So we've got three working tornado watches now. Let me just give this a quick refresh. Let's see. What do we got? Uh, yeah. So there's three tornado watches. Miami is under a tornado watch right now. So South Florida and Central Florida all under tornado watches. We have a tornado watch also in North Carolina, in eastern North Carolina. It looks like they expanded it eastward out to the Outer Banks now, and that's on the edge of the marginal risk that they have. And look at the sharp line. I mean, you don't have to really go that far west. You go back, probably from Williamsport on westward, it's mostly done. So the western edge is sort of shifting eastward, but we still got a lot of this heavy precip that's shooting up northward before the front passes. So we ain't done yet. And just to point out, I'm going to jump to day 3. So this is Thursday into Friday, and it's starting all over again. Slight risk in East Texas, Louisiana, western Mississippi, and southern Arkansas. And they got it in the long range as we go to day 4, which is going to be Friday into Saturday. Slight risk from Mississippi east across Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, and most of North Carolina, all already showing a 15% slight risk. And that may mean that by the time we get to that, just like with this one, they may wind up going to an enhanced risk. I mean, it's really uncanny to have these two storms, the way they're playing out, to be basically playing out in the same, almost the same exact area. I mean, when does that happen? Can you?
And what happened to all those people who during December was saying, it's going to be another year of boredom up here. We're not going to see all that much. Oh, we're not going to see any snow. Oh, it's going to be hard, terrible. And what happened to those people, Joe? As I ring the bell for 200 likes.
Well, hopefully some of them hit the like button tonight. Thank you.
Yes.
For the 200 likes, and we still have more to go. All right. Now this is tough because this starts at 8 o'clock tonight. I'm sorry. This started at 7 o'clock tonight. My mind, for some reason, when it comes to WPC, goes to daylight saving time. Okay, we're on standard time, Joe, so 7 o'clock. So this is on top of what's already fallen. Now, also remember that we have another weather system coming. So, there's a lot of mix here with two systems. So let's just say that from now through Saturday, there will be another 2 to 3 inches plus rain from New Jersey to Maine. So 2 to 3 inches plus liquid precip. Most of that will be rain. The inch-and-a-half line goes through eastern Virginia and eastern North Carolina down to northern Florida. To the west, we have an area of 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a half plus, and that's for areas from Michigan down into Arkansas, cutting across Tennessee and Kentucky and western Ohio, also backing up into Wisconsin, and a pretty good chunk of this is going to wind up being snow. Meanwhile, in the west, it continues because there's still all this energy coming into the northwestern part of the U.S., so several to many inches for the next 7 days, up to several inches of liquid precip in Idaho and into Utah, so that's all going to translate into snow in the northern and in the central Rockies. So there's that. I'm going to go right to, at this point, I'm going to go to the models because the snow maps tonight, the WPC snowfall forecast maps, there's so much overlap that it just doesn't make much sense to go through this. So the upper air, I think, illustrates. It gives you a pretty good lesson. When the atmosphere has got a big headache, it's going to reflect it in the form of a big storm. And of course, the Sunday trough is long gone. But the first system that we're dealing with tonight, when it came down the west coast from Canada and then dropped down into the southwest, and you see it there, this wrapped up cutoff low, and the difference between this and the system we had Sunday is the fact that this uh, this cutoff low maintained its identity, whereas the other one opened up and became a bit of a weaker system as it came eastward. Still had a lot of moisture with it, but it was no way in the same league with this one. The upper low intact and going negative tilt, and that's always, that's a sign of a powerhouse. And while this is lifting up, you can see all that dark blue in the Pacific Northwest. Actually, if you look off the coast of Alaska, this is this morning, right in here. That's the system that is now dropping southeastward, and that's going to be the next animal that's going to come into the east. And look, and then there's the trough that swings around. And while this one doesn't cut off, it goes wholesale negative tilt, Joe. Look at that. You got the
It's a
vortex.
digger.
Yeah, it digs down and it phases with this upper low that's between Lake Winnipeg and Great Slave Lake, and it goes completely negative tilt. And by negative tilt, it's the axis here is northwest southeast. I mean, that's an incredible amount of strength and lift that we're talking about. That's going to be lifting up toward the Great Lakes and toward the northeast. And by the way, you notice up in the Arctic region, okay, this is your you have higher than normal pressures from Iceland all across Greenland, all across northernmost Canada and in the Arctic. So this is the negative Arctic oscillation signal. Okay, so we have a very deeply negative Arctic oscillation right now index. It's at like -2.5, almost -3 standard deviations from the mean. And the jet stream is displaced so far south, and you've got all this, Pacific energy that's running around, and somehow it's all getting involved when it comes into North America. I mean, I don't. It's been a long time, I think, that I've seen a trough axis like this going from Western Canada to the southeast coast of the United States,
Well, if you hand it back to me,
which I
I'll
will.
show you. You want to? Hey, all of you. There was one guy. I forgot who he was on the chat board. You remember? I threw a little bit of a hissy fit or a little bit of a rant about 3 or 4 days ago. Joe Rayo. Joe Rayo said it was going to turn real cold in January. Wrong again, Joe. And I said, for God's sake, we're like only 3 or 4 days into the month of January, and he's already saying, you're wrong, Joe. You're right. It's terrible. I want to. Can you all see this now?
Yeah, it's
did
up.
you throw the
It's up.
6 to 10 day?
Yeah.
Look at this. Look at this, and especially for that, who made those comments. Well, let's count this off here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now let's go down here to probabilities. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Ladies and gentlemen, in this area, and I'm going to blow it up. Boom, right there. This area that you see here is the highest on the CPC scale, 90 to 100% probability of below normal temperatures, which encompasses Chicago, as well as much of Indiana, Illinois, most of Iowa, all of Missouri, St. Louis and Kansas City, the eastern end of Kansas. I'm sure Miss Spallerite will chime in here with this, because I'm sure she's been hearing about this locally on her weather stations out where she is. Oklahoma, Arkansas, part of extreme western Tennessee. This is going to be in the 6 to 10 day outlook. By this time next week, these places are going to be in the deep freeze. They are going to be in the freezer. And just to give you another idea about this, let's show you the hazardous temperature map here. All of what you see here, this zone right here, a high, not a slight, not a moderate, but a high risk of hazardous temperatures. Now, when they say hazardous temperatures, Joe, my assumption is they're talking about high temperatures to be hazardous, let's say up here in Missouri or Illinois or Indiana or especially Michigan. I'm going to make the assumption that these are going to be places that are going to be hard pressed to make it much above 20, if maybe much above 10 for a high temperature, and probably near or below zero at night. And this is going to be from the 17th. This is high probability. So January 17th, that's a week from tomorrow. Everybody in here is going to be in the deep freeze. Now here, where we are here in the Northeast, well, this is part of the Northeast actually. We are in the zone for moderate risk of hazardous temperatures from the 17th through the 20th. And once again, much of the Northeast, all the way down almost to the mid-Atlantic coast, will be in this zone for very cold temperatures. And really, if you look at this in the overview of things, virtually, I would say about 80% of the contiguous United States are going to have some sort of a risk for hazardous temperatures, cold temperatures. And here's the irony of this all, the only state really that doesn't show much of anything is the folks over in Alaska, where you would expect the worst in terms of cold weather, no hazards posted for them. And that would make some sense because it appears that all of that frigid cold air that has been locked up or bottled up over the polar regions and Arctic regions for all of these days and weeks finally is going to spill forth and down into our neck of the woods. And of course, up here, where, as we said last week, it's the Fort Knox eventually of cold weather. It's gone. The cold air is been exhausted. Well, it hasn't been exhausted. It just simply is poured out and into the central and eastern contiguous United States. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. There is the cold weather that all of you said just only about a few days ago, a week ago. Where is the cold weather? Where is it? Where's winter? Winter's not going to be here. Oh my goodness, it's going to be another year like last year. Well, guess what? You wanted it. You got it.
It's already
it.
it's already a totally different winter than it was last year.
It is.
It's totally
it
different.
Is.
Okay.
Look, Joe. I said to my wife tonight.
It may yield a similar outcome for some people, but it is different. The whole pattern's different. It just
9 days. 9 days into January. 9 days into January, and I'm already sick and tired of snow. I'm sick and tired of the rain that we're getting now. I'm sick and tired of the wind. 9 days into January, and I'm already January.
Right. Well, right. And going into this winter, Joe, what was the one thing I said in terms of sort of a general description about the way things were going and how many strange things have been happening in the last year? Rules that we had that somehow now don't seem to work anymore, and that we're going to be seeing some weird things. Well, I thought, December was a pretty odd month. Now we've got back-to-back almost identical storms, 2 days apart, going virtually to the same place. So I think that to me constitutes as a bit strange. Another round of excessive rainfall and up and down the East Coast, mid-Atlantic south, of severe weather and tornadoes, and not just an isolated one or two. We're talking dozens and dozens of severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings that have gone up in the last 2 days. So this is kind of crazy stuff that's happening right now. Jason Kaplan, thank you for hitting the tip jar tonight. Hope this storm helps to bring a more wintry one for next week. Actually, it's the second storm that's really important. The one that's coming Friday night into Saturday. That storm it really is the final driver to bring down the cold air, and it's going to do that.
Right. So exactly.
And I'll just leave you with this. And I forgot about this one. But I've got, since you did the long range cold, WPC in their long range snow forecast, I'll put it up now, and it was based on overnight guidance, which of course now it's not coming up. Come on. Really? I saved this page just for the snow lovers. Oh, here we go. Finally, it's loading. So this is for next Monday into Tuesday. And WPC, Jess Harden, if you're watching, okay? WPC, now this is a 10 to 30% chance for at least a few inches. Arkansas, northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, northernmost Georgia, western North Carolina, and then northeast from there, all of New Jersey, Long Island, Philadelphia, Washington, Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York City, Hartford, Boston, and continuing on up into New England. So WPC, at least based on last night's guidance, and last night the European was pretty bullish. Even the day run today has some snow in the long range. Um, so there, WPC's got it on the maps today in the last day of their forecast. Let's see if they that continues. All right. So in the meantime, back to the upper air. So finally, so here's this system lifts up, and now we've created the driver on over the weekend as this next storm moves up into southeastern Canada, and it can't go anywhere because it's got all of this going on across the Arctic region. This is nothing but higher pressures aloft and at the surface all across the Arctic region. So uh, the, uh, the vortex is basically pinned in eastern Canada. So guess what? All the cold air gets to come down here into the United States, and it looks as if it's going to stay for probably much, if not all of next week. That vortex does not get out of the way. Now, the question is, if there's going to be something happening snow wise, how much room is there going to be? Because there are short waves that are coming around. And you can see that there's a trough here that's swinging around on Monday that's trying to do something. But it's very broad. And then after that lifts out, there's another one that drops around for Wednesday. Uh, it's a little sharper, but still needs some work to do. And then there's yet another one that eventually drops down to the west. So now I'm taking it to the 21st of January, 22nd. Now I know some of the long range models were warming it up across much of the United States uh, uh, back about maybe 3 or 4 runs ago. I don't know if that's wind up, that maybe that gets delayed a bit. I'm not sure. I mean, this does not appear to me like it looks like it does get a little warmer aloft at least the week of January 22nd in the eastern part of the United States because we do go into a bit of a night. Uh, so the gradient gets tight, but maybe it's just a shade less tight than what we're dealing with here. And then that goes through. This is Friday night into Saturday morning, and then after that, cold air from Canada. You see that big 1055 high that's coming down from western Canada, spreads cold air throughout all of the plains, drops it down into Texas, and then we've got this disturbance that the GFS seems to be having a lot of trouble with. Um, the 18Z run, kind of doesn't really do too much with it. It looks like most of the snow gets west of the mountains, and then some kind of low develops that eventually goes up into the Gulf of Maine. The European's been much more bullish in a couple of different ways. I'm not. I'll just show you the Canadian because the Canadian and the European were pretty close. I don't have the. If I show you the European, it's going to be all green. So some people are going to look at that and think it's raining when it's not. But if you look at the Canadian, this is the Friday night Saturday storm that lifts up and moves on to the northeast. And here's the second one that comes in. Now the Canadian and the European both have this sort of look where a low develops uh, along the coast and then moves northeastward and it brings an area of snow up the coast. You see it there. The European was giving about 3 to 6 inches from this. We'll see if it happens. The only thing I'll say is that we need to sort of watch how this upper air trough evolves early next week. Because if it's sharper and a little bit further to the west, it could make things a bit more interesting. As some of the as the night, for example, if I go back to the night run of the European upper air, I'll do that. This is what that run did. Let's go back to this was 0Z. So this is our Saturday storm in the upper atmosphere over Michigan, lifts up into eastern Canada, and then it drops this trough, and then the trough sharpens up and cuts off right over New Jersey, Long Island, right there out in the ocean, and it had this monstrous 960 low. Um, when I looked at this, I thought, oh, this is interesting. But the chances of something like this happening are pretty long. But we got to watch the way the upper air is set up because this something like this is not impossible. Let's put it that way. Or some form of this is not impossible for the first part of next week.
Well, you know what could happen for all of you out there who are crossing your fingers that there may be some major coastal system that it could just as well that the cold air gets locked in to such a degree that this next potential system for early next week doesn't really start to wind up until after it has pretty well moved off the coast and starts moving away. We may get some of it, but the actual atmospheric explosion may take place further to the east. And so we don't get quite as much as what a lot of you are probably hoping for. Oh my God. Again, I want to prove to my wife I am drinking water.
Is she yelling at you?
She says after each show, she says, you got to drink more water. You got to drink it. So I'm drinking it, dear.
You better put
I don't know what's wrong with my throat tonight.
If you're drinking so much water, you might want to put a bucket under your chair too.
Yeah.
Adam Lowe, you're absolutely right. If it was a rainstorm, the models would have the correct placement 10 days out and the amount of rain down to the 100th. But when it's a snowstorm, no, it's got to be all over the place. All over the place. It's there, it's not there. It's to the north, it's to the south. It's to the left, it's to the right. It's weaker, it's stronger. It's deeper, it's too deep. It's too much warm air, not enough warm air. It's too much cold air, not enough cold air. On and on and on it goes.
And the other thing, and I will not mention the name, one of the local New York weathercasters last night, one of the local news anchors turned to him and said, well, how much are you calling for? 3 to 4 inches? How much would that be in terms of snow? And this weathercaster said, oh, my goodness, if this was snow, it'd be 30 to 40 inches.
But that never happens.
But it can't happen if you're going to make snow out of all of this rain that we have. Look at the temperatures right now. They're near 50 degrees. Once you lower the temperatures to or below freezing, the ability of the atmosphere to hold all that moisture shrinks. And so there's no way that you're going to be able to tap into 3 or 4 inches of rain. It would probably be half of that. So it'd be more like 1.5 inches to 2 inches. So maybe you get 15 or 20 inches instead of 30 to 40 inches. You got to take everything into account. You just don't get 30 to 40 inches of snow out of the kind of moisture we have now.
No, and if you look at the fact that look at tonight with a cyclone structured the way this one is. If there was ever a cyclone that should be producing 30 and 40-inch snows because we're getting 2 to 4 inches of rain on the east side, this would be the one. And you're not going to see anybody get those kind of snow amounts.
No.
Forget about lake effect. I'm not talking about that. But it just doesn't.
By the way, speaking of lake effect, next week, the winds, when the winds start kicking in from the northwest, that frigid air, the lakes are wide open. They have not had a chance to freeze to any degree. So you're going to see the lake effect snow machine going full bore next week. Buffalo, Rochester, Watertown. My goodness. Hey Joe, here's our chance. You and I, let's make a reservation at Barnes Corners.
We need to figure this out in the off season when we're going to do this. We can't just, I can't just drop at the drop of a hat and jump in my truck and fly up to drive up to Western New York. But one of these days we're gonna, we'll do this. We'll do this. One of these winter seasons.
I'll tell Renata. I said, look. We're expecting heavy lake effect snow the day after tomorrow. Joe's going to meet me in his truck. We're going to go up there. We've got reservations for a hotel in the week. I'll see you in 2 weeks after they dig us out.
By the way, oh no, my God, Jeff Harden, earlier on the chat board, he's probably off the show now. Off the board, but he couldn't understand apparently where he is in northern Alabama, Joe. The TV stations have already, now it's Tuesday, we're talking a week from now. They have already put a quote first alert. Okay, they've put a first alert for snow in northern Alabama. Now, and he just couldn't. This is, I don't understand. How could they do that so far ahead of time? Well, because it's called ratings. Because and this is why you and I'm certainly happy I'm not working anymore, and this is why you deep down I'm right about this, that you're
Yeah.
happy you're not working anymore, because we would be forced. Can you imagine that if they set up this whole thing? The newsroom says, okay, it's a first, we're going to do first alerts on this. It's not even going to be your decision. It's going to be the newsroom's decision, and the news director's decision, or the executive producer's decision. Today, okay, we're going to put up a first alert, and you're going to have to go on the air, and you can't deny it. You have to do it. You would
Yeah.
be forced to do it, and they would be making us do things that you and I would never have done. So I'm happy. I could just sit back and watch and wait, and just sit here with you on a 5 days a week, Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, and do what we want, when we want, what our audience wants. When you guys ask, we're on the chat board, we try to accommodate that is when I see the message, because sometimes they go by pretty quickly. But no,
We
I,
had
I'm so happy. I am so thrilled that I'm not involved in any of that nonsense anymore.
I have to tell you that I did feel that kind of, what is it, pressure at one time when I was at the News 12 Westchester. We had a consultant. He'd come in 4 times a year. He'd ask for tapes of your recent performance. He'd look at it, and then he would report back to the news director. And what he always used to report about me was, Joe is very good. Joe knows his stuff, certainly. The problem with Joe is he doesn't show enough wattage. In other words, I was not the kind of person to jump up and down and scream and yell about something that might be happening 3, 4, 5 days down the road.
Take the
Joe
guy
needs to,
down to the subway tracks and tell him to toss his leg into the third rail if he wants wattage.
well, that's what he called it, was wattage. Then one night when we had an impending tropical cyclone, a tropical storm, or the remnants thereof coming our way, and I knew that he was in the control room watching the show and watching me. And I had told the director, when I give you a cue, I want you to slowly draw the camera in on me. And that's what she did. Great person. Her name was Nancy Pristash. She always used to listen to me, and I love Nancy. She's the only other woman other than Renata that could tell me what to do. But that night, with this consultant in the control room, and I gave Nancy the signal, slowly the camera started zooming in on me, and I said straight into the camera, folks, listen to me. I know you've heard a lot about this tropical storm. When I feel that we are in a serious situation and that we may get serious flooding or winds or whatever like that, I will tell you. I will tell you. Until then, don't worry. And that after that show, the consultant came up to me and he said, that impressed the hell out of me. He said, yeah, I understand now. You don't need wattage because the way you do it, and that's the way I did my style.
Right.
Is just simply to lean in and tell everybody, when you hear me get concerned or see me
Right.
get concerned, it's time for you
Right.
to get concerned.
Exactly.
And I said, tonight is not the night to be concerned because I don't see it.
Oh.
Meanwhile, all the other stations, well, if this storm takes the right kind of a track, and we say, there's no need to scare people, unless, and believe me, Joe, I have been scared that when the day when we had Sandy approaching,
Right.
I was scared. And I made that clear on the air. I said, this is something we all
And you
have
know
to
what?
be.
The one time you probably do when you do that, okay? I was just, I was not working on. I was working sporadically when Hurricane Sandy came, but I made a few phone calls into a few places with people that I work with to give them a heads up, like 5 days in advance. But the funny thing is, when the one time they know you're somebody that doesn't panic, and the one time you tell them that, you know what, you better take this really seriously because this is going to be a big deal, they don't believe you.
They don't believe you.
They don't believe you. They don't believe you, or they go to, well, nobody else is saying it. You know, and,
Oh,
and you're, and the thing is, you're paying me, okay? You're paying me to be the best that I can be. You're paying me to be um, better than everybody else. Okay, so when you say something like that to me, what you're saying is that I'm not good. I'm not better than everybody else. I'm less than everybody else. If you know, like you said, well, so and so says, well, go hire so and so then. What are you? Why are you even watching the other person anyway? They don't work for you. I work for you, and I'm telling you that this is the thing. But I'm laughing right now because there's a few there's a few people on the chat board. Who is this gas bag you work for? And why don't you name names? Actually, it's not who this is the gas bag I worked for. It was who is the gas bag I worked with.
the gas bag was not at News 12. We
Right.
know that.
And Tom Contino says, I'm also curious about the elusive gas bag. Actually, I have various names have been peppered over the time that you guys have been on here, not just today, but on other days. There will be a day where I will I will reveal who these gas bags were or are. Maybe at the time I reveal them, they will be in past tense. We can only hope and pray, but no matter. One of these days, I will, it'll be one of our highest rated shows. Johnny Quest, thanks for hitting the tip jar. What concerned you the most as weather forecasters? Is it trying to warn people in the middle of the night about severe weather, or is it something else? Um, that's a good question. I never really thought about warning people in the middle of the night because unless I worked a morning shift, I was in bed, so it didn't really matter too much.
Right, right.
And you know,
And I've told the story.
I can't think of anything where. Well, there might have been a couple of times where we had severe weather. I know there were a couple of times when we had severe weather going on at like 10:30 at night. Um, that I had to stay late for, but I don't know. Uh, I would just say in general, it would just be about a general, if there's a storm that looked really serious enough, and hope that that it would be taken seriously with respect to something like a Hurricane Sandy or maybe some of the bigger snowstorms that have occurred um, along those lines. But that's probably where I would go with that. You have a radar up on the screen, I see.
Yes, and by the way, Bella Lagrissi, I love your comment. Um, a quote: "That's a crooked tree. We'll send him to Washington." Bob Ross. Bob Ross, of course, is the painter who likes to draw happy little trees, and I've heard him use that line on more than one show when he talks about trees that are, kind of, you know, uh, not straight or whatever. Crooked tree. We'll send him to Washington. Yeah, Joe, I've got the radar. This is the radar from Philadelphia. I just brought it up because I wanted to show. Look at this. Look at this.
Oh wow!
Area.
Look at that.
That's a
Wait,
really nasty looking squall line.
Leave that. Keep that up. I'm just going to check something. Um, Go ahead. You can certainly keep that. That's impressive.
Let me see if I can get a different perspective here of this. Hang on. Yeah, there you go. Oh my goodness.
I could see it on the.
Coming right toward the Maryland-Delaware border right here. This must contain some really nasty storms. Don't be surprised if tomorrow we hear about maybe a tornado or a funnel cloud or two associated with this. I know it's a squall line. I don't see enough resolution here for us to see a hook echo. And look at this, even behind the line, you've got a little blob of red here. But this is part of the system. Notice the general movement from southwest to northeast. And this is the area that, as I said,
it's also moving pretty fast. It's also moving. It's also that squall line's moving pretty fast.
It's rolling along. This is the area that's going to be over the tri-state area between 10 o'clock and 1 a.m. So um, the fireworks are waiting in the wings to move in, and this certainly is a sign of heavy rain and significant wind and possibly some convection as well. Let me just move northeast again up to the New York area. And you can see this is not, as I said, this is not a huge solid area of moderate to heavy rain. It's kind of broken up a bit, so
It's coming
it's
up in
coming more like in
bands.
waves.
Yeah, it's coming up in bands.
Yeah, yeah. So
I'm trying to get the observation list from the Weather Service, but apparently, okay, now just to see if there's any unusual, because when I was doing this before, it was before 8 o'clock, so it got some new obs. Newark gusting to 41, Staten Island to 35, Brooklyn College 39, Lehman College 38. Just looking now on Long Island, MacArthur's gust to 30, gusting to 40. Uh, Most other places are running between 25 and 35. Let's look in New Jersey. Teterboro gusting to 43, Trenton gusting to 47, Atlantic City 45, Wrightstown 41, Philadelphia gusting to 51 with heavy rain. There, that squall line's getting closer to them. Gusting to 51 there. Uh, Connecticut, no. And all right, let me just check. Let me just check one more thing here. I got to go back and go to the Mount Holly Weather Service page. Come on, there you go. Observation, no. I got to talk to somebody about the weather.gov website. Sometimes when you click on it, it does weird things. Okay, so Pomona is 25 to 45. Wildwood is 31 to 46. Trenton, we said, was 47. Just looking down, Philadelphia gusting to 51. Coatesville 43. Further south, let's go to Wilmington's gusting southeast at 37, gusting to 56. And Wilmington is up in northern Delaware. It's not exactly sitting along the ocean. I mean, I know it's not far from Delaware Bay, but still, gusting to 56. Dover gusting to 44. Georgetown 53. Easton 47. Stevensville 51. Patuxent 45. Cambridge 52, Salisbury 51. I mean, they're just blowing away, Joe, all through that whole area there around Chesapeake Bay to Delaware and to southeastern Pennsylvania. So that's moving up northward.
right, I'm looking here at some of the observations locally. White Plains, we have gusts to 29 miles per hour. And let's see. No, I don't know what TS 745 is. Newburgh has a gust of 29. The winds are not overly strong up here yet, but wait a little while. They are what we're seeing down further south and west. That is indeed coming our way for later on this evening and overnight tonight.
I'm just going to look at one more thing here. Take a look. David Fuller, thanks for hitting Super Chat. You were out late tonight on a Bible study on Zoom due to the weather, but you made it. Thank you. And I hope you don't lose your power either. I'm just checking on Tornado HQ. Got 19 active severe thunderstorm or tornado warnings up right now. 19 of them.
19. Wow.
19.
It's not even April or May yet.
No, it's January. I'm just trying to, and that includes, by the way, the snow squall warning for Morgan, Rich, Summit, and Uinta, Uinta counties in Utah and Wyoming. And otherwise, the rest so the other 18, right now, they're all severe thunderstorm warnings. And a mix of severe thunderstorm and special marine warnings. So the ones in Florida are still going. There's one still going in a bunch of places in North Carolina, northeastern North Carolina, and into southeastern Virginia. Bertie, Camden, Chowan, Currituck, Gates, Hereford. Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm fine.
All right,
I'm fine.
Hertford, Pasquotank. Okay, Perkins. Oh, I knew how to pronounce that one. Chesapeake, the city of Chesapeake, Hampton City, Newport News, Norfolk, Poquoson. This is where Dave Tolerous could help me out with this. Portsmouth and Suffolk. That I recognize. And also we have another one. This is in North Carolina, Beaufort, Carteret, Craven, Jones, and Pamlico. That was easy enough to get through those last five.
I see Dave Tolerous is on the chat board
Is
here.
he? Hi,
He's
Dave.
he's saying 0 in New York City next week. Bastardi says, or he calls it Bustardi. I want to make that clear. We did not say that. That's Dave Tolerous. Bustardi says that with every cold air outbreak.
Hey, David, you want to come on? Let's see if he gives us a yes. I was not forecasting cold in December. I know you weren't. Absolutely, you were not. You want to? Do you want to come on, Dave? Just give me a yes or no, and I'll send you his link. Let me send him the link anyway. If he wants to come on, he can come on. We've got 290 likes. Will that keep us from getting to 300? Hold on a second. Let's see. I'll send it to him. We'll see what he does with this. Meanwhile, everybody's all just darn curious about who the gas bags I'm referring to are. And actually, I was reminded by
Dave Tolerous says yes, he does want to come on.
Okay, hang on, Dave. I'm going to send it to you right now.
I'm just going to check something, Joe. I'll be right back.
All right, so in the meantime, we're going to get Mr. Tolerous on. And all right, so you got the Zoom link, Dave. So let's don't take forever, all right? We're limited here. Very limited. As I was saying, I know a couple of you have mentioned gas bags along the way. I promise, one of these days I'll get an opportunity to bare my soul, but not today. So Joe's probably ran to the little boy's room, and oh, you know what? Let me just check. What's my temperature now? I'm still at 39, so I'm hoping to get some snow. All right, we're waiting for Mr. Tolerous. I sent him the link. I mean, all he has to do is click it, and it should be there. I mean, shouldn't take that long, unless he's trying to put maps up. You want to check out another radar somewhere in the meantime?
Water closet looks okay, dear. The executive producer came down to check on me.
You see, this is all right. So now we're sitting here waiting for him. You have something to do? I mean, you have something. Can you do something? You want to follow that squall line again? I don't know.
DT says stand by.
I'm standing by, David. No.
You know, if you want me to say something about the,
I could run you know what I could do? I could run a commercial here.
300, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody, just be patient because God knows what he's doing. All he's got to do is click on something and just come on. So at least we have him here.
I will say one thing about the gas bag, and it's something that Johnny Carson once said about his career. And a lot of people wonder why, when Johnny Carson retired, he never came back. It's true. I mean, he rarely ever made any guest appearances anywhere. He just went completely. And the reason is, as he told his executive producer, Peter LaSalle, once, he said, I don't want to come back like some of the other greats or famous people on television, like Bob Hope and George Burns and Jack Benny, who stayed a little bit too long at the fair. And he didn't want to be that way. And the gas bag that Joe refers to, it apparently has stayed a bit too long at the fair. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I guess so. I can't think of anything clever at the moment because I'm sitting here, waiting for him to get on the show here. It's because it's coming up on a 8:45, and
Yeah, we
what's
should
the
be going
what?
off now, Joe.
Dave, if you're not going to come on now, I'm going to just shut. We're going to put it in. We're going to end the show. You got to come on right now. I can't wait much longer.
Well, he says it won't open.
Well, I don't. I can't help you there. It's there. I sent you the link.
Hmm.
All right. Why don't we just do this on another night? Because this is you know,
Yes.
this is
Maybe Dave is putting a suit on. All right.
this is
So,
this is this is. Oh, he's typing me a message. No, now he stopped. It won't connect. Well, that's the link. I don't know what to tell you.
well, why don't
I
we
mean,
just
I don't
do
have
the
any.
commercial? Do the commercial. We'll shut it down for tonight. I will tell everybody who hit the tip jar, thank you. Bogies Bees, Johnny Quest did it twice. Jason Kaplan, David Fuller. I'm not sure. I think David Fuller too may have hit the tip
He
jar
did.
twice.
He did. I think
Yeah.
he did.
Brandon Doherty, Paul Roman. Thank you, one and all. Thanks all of you for putting us again over the 300 mark in the like department.
Oh, he's here. Hold on. He's here. He
Oh,
finally appeared.
oh darn it! I was almost.
Now we have to unsay the thank yous and unsay goodbyes. Are you there, David? Yes, I know you're coming on now, David. I can see the box came up. DT Maine, connecting to audio.
Hold on, he's here. Finally.
It's about
Um,
time.
yeah, really.
What do you what is it? You're using your AOL dial-up to get on the internet?
yeah, using a dialogue. Actually, what it is, it's the winds here are so strong, and so many people here have lost power.
Oh, I'll bet. We were just following Joe Rayo had on, showing the radar coming out of Maryland. There's this wicked-looking squall line that developed. It's a very,
Yeah, no,
very narrow squall line, but it's there.
yes, we've had several of them, and if you look at radar down in Virginia, you can see the squall line in Eastern Virginia. But early in the afternoon, it came through Central and Eastern Virginia, and like several bands of it. And so now it's become one big giant line. And yes, there are numerous wind gusts in the Chesapeake Bay up to 60 miles an hour, and all the Delmarva, because in the Delmarva, being a peninsula, the winds are just blowing right up the bay and through the Delmarva. So if any place is actually going to take damage from this event, it's probably going to be the Delmarva, because they have winds on the east side and on the south side and on the west side.
Wilmington's been gusting between 50 and 60 for about 5 hours now.
Yeah, you're going right up the peninsula, getting slammed. I mean, so yeah, it's a doozy.
It's a doozy. Yes, it is. So
Hazel used to say that.
By the way, you don't have you're just audio. You're not video.
Yeah, I didn't get my camera set up. I did a TV thing in Boston this afternoon for the people up in the PBS station up in Boston.
Wow, wow.
Yeah,
you're getting up there.
Making the big time. Hey, Joe.
Yes.
Look at the squall line.
Oh my God! Look at that thing.
Just the last few minutes.
I'm telling you,
that's about to go into Philadelphia too.
Yes, it is.
And
hey, if it goes into Philadelphia, maybe the Eagles might win the next game. No, forget that.
All right, you know what? Since we got you on here, let me just ask you, and we don't have to do
yes, no, and maybe.
We don't have to do it with maps. So I saw your post, and you were quite right about the fact that the GFS loves to lose things when there's a lot of cold air around.
Always. It's mind-boggling. It drives you crazy.
And then
it only has that problem with cold air. If you have like autumn, October, or July, or April, it doesn't have that problem. It just has with the Arctic cold.
So why? All right. So the European did what it did. Okay, right. Last night, which was
and this morning, right.
And the day run, but it was a little bit different. Yeah, I showed it earlier on the screen, but but in terms of the upper air, I mean the overnight run was I looked at it, it was like, did the model have to do this now, because I knew it was not going to be different in the next run. I mean, how likely is it that you could get a cutoff and a trough that goes negatively tilted the way that European had it for early next week? I mean, that just seems to me. I mean, I sort of see how it could happen, but at the same time, a lot has to go right for to get a look like that and wind up with, a powerhouse sitting off the Jersey coast and south of Long Island.
Sure. Well, a couple things. First, the key to all this is the block in Greenland, as we all know, which is monstrous, and this storm and the one on Friday that goes up into the Great Lakes. Okay. So, and what happens is each one of these storms is further and further east. So it feeds the block in Greenland.
Right.
So we really won't know where the low is going to form, the one for storm number 3, January 16th, 17th, until after January 14th, when the second low goes up into the Great Lakes. And this second one is actually stronger than this current one. I don't know if you saw the models today, but they get down to like 962, 964 in the Eastern Great Lakes.
Yes.
I mean, that's almost as strong as the Cleveland super bomb, Joe, in 1978.
Right.
Almost as strong as the Cleveland super bomb. So, and then it gets up in there and it dumps the Arctic air in place. Now, that kind of storm in Quebec with a block in Greenland, that's going to dump a lot of Arctic air in place. I have trouble believing with the Arctic air coming that far south that the low is going to form and then go inland and cut across Virginia and to southern New Jersey and then go across Cape Cod. With that much Arctic air in place, you're going to have to show me that one. I'm from Missouri. I don't think that's right.
I mean, I wasn't so much worried about that. I was more concerned. My concern is that in terms of how the trough comes around, that it winds up being more of this sort of, stretched out, positively tilted trough that, you get a wave that develops along the boundary and then runs up,
right,
much like how the Canadian showed it today and how the European day run showed it today, where you get a low that runs up the coast that just keeps on going. Or, if it's a little further east and it winds up being further offshore. I mean, I'm not really I agree with you. I think there's too much cold air around. The weight of the cold air should be far more important here than anything else.
Right.
It's just, you've got this massive negative Arctic oscillation that actually is going to trend up, be less negative. Doesn't quite get to neutral, but it gets, far less negative than what it is now. So there's room there for something to happen. I'm just trying to visualize how to, what exactly it is that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to be anything going to the west. I just wonder whether it's just going to be a flattish wave or a deepening, something much more important.
Right. And, if we're dealing with Arctic air, so your snow ratios are going to be much higher. We're going to be higher than normal. Obviously, that's on keep in mind. And we won't know. Like the 0Z European solution is different from the 12Z solution because the model is trying to figure out what to do with the January 14, 15 storm goes up in there, and then we have the trough goes through. We don't know how it's going to shape up. So, and somebody actually said to me today, well, Dave, there's no Arctic high to the north. I'm like, yeah, that's true, but there's an exception to the Arctic high to the north rule. When the polar vortex is down in Quebec, Canada, okay, or James Bay, Canada, you don't need the Arctic high there, okay, because it acts as a giant 50-50 low and keeps the southern track suppressed. If you have a gigantic closed polar vortex in James Bay, Canada, it's going to suppress anything in the southern jet stream. It's going to prevent it from bombing out and wrapping up. And, so that's why we know whatever happens, it's not going up the Appalachians. It's not going into the Ohio Valley. And you can see this, the 12Z European ensemble, it had all the lows along North Carolina coast.
Right. I saw that.
That's fine. That's exactly what I think is going to happen. Now, I'm not going to, it's not going to, I don't think it's going to go to 978 or anything like that.
Or like this morning, what was it, a 962?
Yeah, that was just too much. Too soon, and that from the 0Z run, it had it going 981 east of New Jersey, cutting across 967 east of Long Island. I mean, it's a blizzard. I mean, that would be a blizzard for the Northeast, and it would make a lot of snow perverts really, really happy. They would probably have to change their underwear. So it's
snow perverts. Oh God, I love that.
They couldn't get the stain out of the pants.
Oh Jesus! Can we?
That's what we are, folks. I mean, let's call it. I mean,
I'm sorry about that. Hey, by the way, Brandon, get this, Dave. Brandon Grabalachov on our chat board
Yes.
refers to you as the captain of catastrophe or the
Yes.
of chaos.
The Colonel
Yeah.
of Chaos.
That's
Yes.
when I do my weekly weather videos, This Week in Weather, the intro is always welcome to another fun-filled, action-packed, and intellectually stimulated edition of This Week in Weather. I'm your host, DT, meteorologist and weatherist, the captain of chaos, or colonel of confusion, commander of catastrophe. So yes, I put that in there, or I open it always that way. So just something I do. It's, I don't know. It's just, and because of people, that's why I call them sick, twisted weather freaks, because that's what that's what most of us are. So we
Right.
just have jobs where we get to talk about weather as professionally, but everybody else who follows it, they're essentially just sick, twisted weather freaks. So
What do you think about after next week?
well, there's also another event which I'm watching for January 1920.
Right.
And I mean 19th and 20th, not January 1920. I just want to make that clear. Um, and then, look, the MJO goes into phase 3, 4, and 5, and we get a mild cycle. There's more evidence that the sudden stratospheric warming event is going to happen in late January, and it's going to cause the pattern to reamplify. So February looks pretty darn impressive.
The polar
so
I've noticed on the polar vortex runs that I'm looking at, and I've admitted many times, I'm still kind of trying to grasp all of that goes on there.
Sure.
But even that it doesn't split, it looks pretty weak. I guess it's up there, and it keeps getting, it elongates. It actually does split, I think, early next week for a couple of days. There's a little vortex that drops down to Tennessee Valley.
Exactly right.
Then it disappears. Then it just sort of pulls up, and then comes back down and starts to stretch again. But it still remains in a weakened state, and I would think that would be bullish. Or
it is bullish as long as it's not one of those giant 500 lows or like 50 contours around just sitting on top of the North Pole.
Oh, it's nothing like that.
Which is the kiss of death, So
right.
And if you look at the European weeklies, like at 300, at the end of January, the ridge is enormous. It goes from Nevada all the way up to Bering Sea. I mean, it's just it's a pretty nice looking pattern. So, and there's strong indications of another negative NAO. Major NAO showing up on the first week of February. So, we may get a break here for a week. On some of the models, we'll see what happens. But I don't think this is it by any stretch of imagination. I just also the El Nino has started weakening now at a pretty steady pace.
Do you know what the index is down to?
Yeah, I'll tell you in a second. I got the latest and greatest right here. Let me click off the porn for 1 second.
Please, by all means, please. No, it wasn't.
That was a joke, folks.
No,
come on.
No, it wasn't. Oh, God.
Okay, let's see here. Yeah, let's see. That is OIST. Yeah, it's down to 1.85.
Okay.
So from a peak of 2.15 several days ago. So it's it's getting there.
So
it's a slow drop, but it's getting there.
So I'm sorry. You said 1.85, correct?
Yeah.
And if I remember from the guidance that I looked at a week or so ago, maybe it was about a week or so ago, that it starts to slope down fairly steadily.
Yes.
Toward the end of this month and through February and March.
Yep. It goes down at a pretty good rate. So, definitely shows that happening.
By the way, Joe, I'm sorry, jump in if you got a question.
No, I don't have. I'm just enjoying listening to two of you.
Oh, okay. So, do you remember the last time we had back-to-back bombs like that, major storms like this that are almost identical?
You mean the Midwest?
Or anywhere for that matter.
Well, I mean, for the Midwest, it's been a while, but I'm sure it's happened before. It doesn't happen often.
No, it doesn't. And I'm trying to rack my brains out as far as the last time I that I can remember. I mean,
how about the winter of the four Easters in March?
Oh well, that's right. There's that. So you got to go back 5 years now. right?
Yeah, there's that. There was
6
also in the
years.
Mid-Atlantic, there was the 2009, 2010 winters where DC, Baltimore, Philly had
I
two
remember that.
essentially blizzards,
I remember that.
4 days apart, so.
Yeah, I remember because
Yep.
on the I remember seeing surface maps where it was like one bomb, and the first bomb had
Yeah,
gone out, and then there was the second one that was just almost right on top of it, and they somehow were able to survive as their own separate entities as major storms. Yeah,
yes.
that's been cool. You're right. No, I know it's happened before. It's just that this one was just, to me, stood out because of the fact that they almost looked identical. They just
Yeah.
do.
Yep. It's one of the things that, when you see unusual events like that, we call black swan events, where they come out of that, and, or the 2005 hurricane season, where you had 5 category 4 or 5 hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico. First time that's ever happened. Or remember Sandy? I mean, Sandy was the first time a hurricane, or, whatever, the ocean storm, whatever it was, a hurricane, I think it was a hurricane, turns into the New Jersey coast. That's never happened before. Made a
Right.
sharp turn 90 degrees. So people have to remember that 1 in 500 doesn't mean it's every 500 years. It means any time in those 500 years. Okay, it doesn't. So people may get that mistake. They think
Right.
1 in 10,000 chance means it's not going to happen for 10,000 chances. That's not what it means, folks. It means one time. It could happen the first chance, the 100th chance, 1,000 chance. It's you don't. So
You just
people
don't know.
misunderstand that whole probability stuff big time. It's a real problem.
They do. They think that, okay, we've had the storm. That means we won't have to worry about it for 10,000 years.
Right.
That's not how it works.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way
What
at
is it?
all.
Ellicott City was it Ellicott City in Maryland?
Yes.
Right.
Back-to-back floods.
Right. Didn't they have they had back-to-back 500-year floods,
Right.
pretty much in back-to-back years.
Yeah, they did. It's I lived a year or two up in that area in Central Maryland. It was Ellicott City's a nice town, and they got slammed with that stuff. So
Wethersfield, Connecticut, back in like 1974, a meteorite hit a house in Wethersfield, Connecticut. And you say to yourself, well, what are the odds for that to happen? And what is it going to happen again? God knows how many years in the future. 2 years later, same town, 2 blocks down from the house that got hit, another house got hit with a meteorite. I mean, like, what are the odds?
they have to be. What you don't know about that, Joe, is that half the people in that town are actually space aliens.
It was a signal. It was a sign.
It was a signal. So they were space aliens. That's why that happened
Anyway.
All right.
All right. Well, that's
Dave,
where we stand with the thing for January 16, 17. We'll just have to wait and see what happens on the 14th.
Okay.
Outside of that, we just don't know.
David, we'd love to have your beautiful face on. So
Yeah.
why don't we set up you have an open invite to come on. If I see you on the board, you can come on. But why don't we set it up so that you can actually come on when we start the show, which is any time between. I mean, maybe you're not. I know you're such a huge star, and maybe you don't want to start the show. You want to be formally introduced. We'll
set up
red carpet, cheese platter, makeup, that kind of thing. Yeah. So let's. I'd like to get you in from the beginning. So,
How about, let's say, maybe either January 13th, which is a Saturday, or the 14th, which is a Sunday.
Let's do the Sunday. Well, Saturday, because we're usually off Fridays and Saturdays, although we're going to be on Friday because of this. So let's do Sunday. It's at 7:30. The show starts at 7:35 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, it'll give us, that's 2 days to look at the thing going on the 15th, 16th. So yes, that'd be good.
All right, so good. Well, so we'll have you on Sunday night. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the rain is beginning to let up here, and I have to take the garbage out. So
yes, and I'm going to have supposedly I'm watching the radar echoes as my temperatures here in the mountains in the upper 30s, and it's supposed to, might get here in another hour, and I might get to see some snow tonight. So I'm excited. All right, buddy. Thanks for being here, coming on. And everybody, thank you for hanging around so long tonight because we're pushed past the 9 o'clock hour. We've been on for 90 minutes. So we will see you tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. Stay safe tonight, and we'll talk about the next storm tomorrow. Nighty-night.
All right.
good night, folks.
Good night.
Bye.